Welcome back, and for those of you that are just tuning in, welcome aboard. I'm your host, Clark Macbeth, and you're in the toy chest now. Welcome to the toy chest. Welcome to Open Source Toys. I've changed the graphics up a little. I hope that's all in the area that is not intrusive on the screen, while still being able to have the captions on the bottom, and up here, you know, you have a website that's related to this particular program. And because I did all that wavy shit, no, I did not do what Elon Musk did. My heart goes out to you, not him, okay? Just so we're clear. So what I'm looking at right now is the clock, because I do that a lot. I just have a real habit of wanting to know what time it is all the time, and how I can take advantage of time in the best way possible. And sometimes I speed run when I do this. But this is an entire operating system. This is Aurora OS. Let me show you. Let me pull up the terminal here. This is a GNU/Linux operating system, and move that terminal a little bit so you can see my face. And I'm going to do a fast fetch. All Linux operating systems, you know, distros, GNU/Linux. If I hit super up, this terminal will show in a better position, and you can see, I can try that again, it will not display better, but here we have my system information, my operating system. You have all the specs. There's like a graphics area of the CPU that is kind of separate. It's an integrated graphics thing. I have it set to gaming mode. It has almost... It has... 64 gigs of RAM, but in gigabytes, that's what it looks like. And in that one brief when I did the fast fetch, that was the amount of system memory, random access to be used. And there's storage on top of storage on top of storage. I don't know if I got the external drives, but alright, let me do that one more time. Fast fetch with all the dipping sauces. I got backups, I got backups for the backups, I got backups for the backups for the backups for the backups. I have a pretty elaborate system on how I deal with my data, and if the internet were to just go down tomorrow, I would have absolute, like, I'd be able to get back in with muscle memory and no one else would, okay? Everyone should have at least that much cybersecurity in their lives, no matter what they do, no matter how innocent they claim to be, no matter how little you feel you have to hide. That's the minimum standard. To have all of your data and information in your possession, and in a way that you have the easiest access to them always, and only you know how to get into it. I think everyone should be at least that cyber secure when it comes to stuff. Now, that doesn't mean you can't, like, I mean, if you online services, cloud storage, cloud computing, that's fine. Just remember to have a copy at home, because you don't know when that data is going to disappear. Speaking of data, Aurora OS is the operating system here, and I already riced out KDE, the cool desktop environment, and I changed the start menu. This is what I love about open source operating systems, and having people just, with their heart, make programs, make a whole operating system. Make something that you can customize endlessly. And that is how I broke Aurora OS. That right there. I cannot emphasize myself enough, but I can make my head a little bigger. That's exactly how it happened. I went Aurora OS, I went on the computer and I did a lot of KDE ricing, which you just have to do. It's like a thing if you're into ricing stuff. KDE is very much a desktop environment, which is like the equivalent of Windows running on top of what's it called? NT. NT's the kernel. It's the thing that runs all the logic, and there's another program that runs all of this. Whether you're using Windows, that technically is a desktop environment on top of NT, and if you're using Mac OS, that is very much a desktop operating system directly on top of its own flavor of Unix. I did too much ricing, and I'm sorry. I gotta pull up your name again. I'm sorry. I'm really terrible with names, by the way. Mr. Framework 13, is it? Oh, Aurora is your host name, whatever that means. Let's have another look here. Let's see what we got. Fast fetch. Never mind your pronouns. I need your fucking name. Pretty important part of the handshake. Aurora DX state Minet Freicomputer. That's what I put the name of the device. But if I if I do KDE Connect, if I connect and send files with my phone and stuff like that, it's going to show up as Aurora because this is a read-only operating system. And that's what's so incredible about it. You're not supposed to be in a position to do anything to permanently break it, and yet I did. Now, thankfully, I did have everything backed up on these Chonkers drives already. I gotta stop closing this. Sorry about that. So, like, I have almost 40 terabytes on this, and can easily exceed that if I plug in just an insanely fast, like gaming spec SSD in an enclosure that also looks quite gamer. I wonder if I can show you a brief little loop of what that looks like. So the thing about an immutable, image-based, cloud-based, whatever you want to call it, where you like snip the branch off of something type method of storing files, if you put Aurora OS on your computer, the operating system is it, and you can't change anything about that. So I think all of these phrases suck, and we should just call them safety computers. Like, we are in a point in time where computers are going to have more safety features installed as time goes on, and if big tech at any point wants to earn public trust in any way, shape, or form ever again, Mr. Pichai, or is it Pichai? Yeah, I wanted to make sure I think he prefers the American pronunciation of that. I don't know. See, it's okay to not know things sometimes. But anyway, there's going to have to be more safety features with computers as time goes on, and it's going to be made clear what they're capable of, what can be changed, and what can't. So how am I recording this? Well, everything that you can change in this is in what's called the home folder. Think of it as your house with stuff. Nothing important there. Your house, it's kind of like Google Home, actually, if you really think about it. But you have your desktop, which is like your workspace. All of this, except the program on it running my face, think of that as a little television. Documents, downloads, and all this junk. And by the way, the default KDE doesn't look like this. If you have problems spotting out specific things with your vision, maybe your color is a little off, the Candy theme for KDE makes it much easier on the eyes and to find things. And I also changed the font to Noto Serif and blew it up a little so that things would be easier to read. But this is the part of the system you can change. There is a trash. That's it. It's like a home. And the thing from the wall to the outside, that's the part of the operating system that can't be changed. It is immutable, and Aurora OS is open source. You can look at the code, source code yourself and see just how well all of that was done. And the beauty of open source is we're checking each other, so if anything nefarious does happen, we can undo that change and message the person who made the program. So, the reason all of that technobabble is a good thing, at least in my use case, is because I do develop now. I learned Rust popular and I properly learned Rust, but I did that after vibe coding and becoming curious enough. Yes, that is going to be a path. I see that as a valid path. I don't think vibe coding is very good. You have to be honest with yourself, and you really should pay attention and understand what is going on and how your computer is working with the code that it is using to make everything run. So, with all of that in mind, let me open the program I was looking for. It was called something very sciencey sounding. It's not VS. I'm not going to use VS. I want to follow through on the using open source as much as possible thing. Let's try Pulsar. It's Pulsar. It's Pulsar. Sorry, I was thinking like Atoms or something. Anyway, yeah, Pulsar. This is an IDE that I'm going to use to make Rust code. It's customizable. It's GUI. I prefer GUI. And if I'm going to have a degree, well, I have a IT degree technically with the marketing management thing already. But if I'm going to have a skill set and use it for money, I know that the best way to do that is going to be in the terminal, and that's going to get tiring on the eyes. So if I want to do something at home, if I want to make open source toys that just pad my resume while I wait for an offer, which there's going to be a lot more opportunities in the software developer job market for Rust development in particular, another aspect of safety computing, and I think the makers of this operating system are going to, like, full on use that as much as possible. The thing about safety computing is, if you make a mistake, you can go back. And that's it. Like, every time I boot this up, there are images of the way this system was every time I booted up before. Everything is layered on top of one another. The home folder is not done this way, but to put everything around the home folder, that doesn't take nearly as much storage to make copies of and make partitions out of that you can boot into, and it will just keep doing that for more than 10 boots. But how could I break this? By writing KDE too much. Like, I decided to tone back the weather widgets. Like, I had one on the top, on the bottom, and the side to the side. Now I just have 1, 2, 3. There is no fourth one. This is more system. I should probably move the system tray up here too. Hold on one moment. That looks way much better. Like, it looks a lot more like Windows 7, but a bit more modernized. And that is the vibe that KDE is going for by default and going forward. Like, that is the model, that is the style. You cannot copyright a style, but that's what KDE is going for. Another wonderful, wonderful thing is, instead of like being confused of where's system tray, no, that's up here. This is the system stuff and the system tools. All of them. I even have like timer. I got the memory. I got the network speed, CPU use. There might be a little spike here and there. There might be things checking for updates. I can access the connection. If something is shoved all the way to the side of the system tray, I can go in and do that. I have media controls. It's a bit more useful if I'm not using VLC. To show you this webcam image in all of its warm, light, glowy beauty. And at this point, I think I'm going to be done with cool vaporizers during the winter whatsoever. I just cannot. I cannot have cool humidifiers running in here anymore. I got to find another way to do that. Okay? Oh my god, it's like Florida humid in here. I'm going to have to open this a little. Oh, hi again, Jello. I'm going to need to change the color of that bulb. That throws things way off. I might just use that for reading and turn down the intensity too. That is a smart bulb, that is a smart light, and you are a dumb cat. Get out. I hope the Aurora developers see this video and catch it in their timeline somehow, because it was a very specific series of events that somehow broke the unsinkable ship that is supposed to be an immutable distribution. I forgot what I called it. Oh, the safety, like safety Linux. Like, that's, I know that sounds a little diminutive, but that's really, there are people who want to get into Linux, and that's a proper way to do that. The learning curve is slightly higher, but the odds that they'll do some freak mistake are still gonna be there. But there's an undo button for everything around my face to get all of that up and running again. But somehow I found a way to break it, and it had something to do with Wayland. Because of all the mods I made in KDE and having to run it through Wayland, which is like a little, it does the inputs and outputs of all the video devices. That's why it's called a server on a computer. Wayland is the thing that lets me fractionally scale all the windows. It keeps the display information secure. So, for most of this system's inputs and outputs, I mean, if you want to get the airwave television, I guess go nuts, but the inputs and outputs, the sound and video, if you were to like do an ammeter reading, it's gonna look like shit. You're not going to be able to pick up the signal directly from the wire with Wayland anymore, and that's why it is already infinitely better than X11. But it takes a little more resources to run, obviously, since it's trying to keep everything secure and safe and make sure that snoopers don't get in and out of it. I'm not even sure if any version of Windows does that, but they absolutely should. But the way I broke it was I did so many KDE Rising mods that I crashed Wayland in a way that it could not recover. This is part of the operating system that cannot, under any circumstances, be changed, and if you crash that part, this essential part, I can't get into any recovery, at least not without remembering specific key presses and hoping that the display that's flashing in front of me and confusing me is close enough to what I'm trying to do that if I press a specific number of keys in a specific way, entering specific commands like sudo image rebase and stuff like that, I decided not to do that, so I got backups. I just had to refresh everything, and I decided to go easier on the mods. I do have these lovely backgrounds going in a loop, just so it doesn't look all boring when I play with open source toys, and the operating system itself is an open source toy. I've also shown you VLC. I've shown you Dolphin, which is like File Explorer, but for Linux. And if you are running Aurora OS, be careful not to rice it out so much that you have no visual way. You can't open a virtual teletype. You can't do anything. If you're just be careful with that, because KDE does not put any limit on ricing. That's why the community of ricing computers pretty much revolves around that desktop environment in Linux. And I like it, and that's why they call it the cool desktop environment, yo! And as always, subscribe if you like, and share if you care. Peace!